Before we even jump into the sources today, I really want to take a moment to offer a sincere divine blessing over your day.
Absolutely.
And honestly, over the entire week ahead of you, wherever you are listening to this right now, whatever heavy load you might be carrying, I truly hope this time we spend together brings you some peace.
Yeah, maybe some clarity.
Right, and insights that actually make your life lighter. Because today we are opening up the comprehensive study notes from the Holman and the NAA Study Bibles, specifically zooming in on Exodus chapter 18.
Which is such a rich text.
It really is.
Yeah.
And our mission for this deep dive is to uncover what is basically a 3,000-year-old blueprint for surviving burnout.
It is arguably one of the most practical texts from the ancient world. I mean, we are looking at a masterclass in human dynamics here,
Yeah.
organizational leadership, and just, well, raw survival, really.
Which is why this matters so much for you, the listener. It doesn't matter if you are managing a chaotic household with toddlers running around, leading a sprawling corporate team, or
just trying to navigate a season where your personal responsibilities feel entirely overwhelming.
exactly. This text is going to speak directly to that feeling of drowning in tasks. But to really grasp the weight of the advice in this chapter, we need to zoom out first.
Right.
The Holman study notes map this out in a really fascinating way. They position chapter 18 as the crucial pivot point of the entire book of Exodus.
That macro view is essential. If you look at the structure of Exodus, it's really a story of two halves, and chapter 18 is the hinge connecting them.
Okay.
Everything before this, so chapters 1 through 17, plain hail, is looking backward. It's entirely focused on rescue. You have the plagues, the crossing of the Red Sea, the desperate survival in the desert. It is the trauma of a people fleeing an empire.
So they're running on pure adrenaline and sheer survival instinct up to this point.
They absolutely are. But everything from this point forward, chapters 19 through 40, shifts gears entirely. The focus looks ahead.
Towards Mount Sinai.
Yes, they are about to arrive at Sinai to receive the law. The narrative transitions from the chaotic flight of rescued refugees into the incredibly complex, really difficult work of organizing a brand new nation.
Wow.
So chapter 18 serves as the bridge between the trauma of their past and the structured society of their future.
That makes the opening of this chapter feel almost, I don't know, jarring. We have this grand, epic backdrop of plagues and moving millions of people across a desert, but chapter 18 zooms right past all of that and focuses on a quiet family reunion.
Curiously intimate.
Right. Moses is finally reunited with his father-in-law, Jethro, who is a priest of Midian, and Jethro brings along Moses' wife, Zipporah, and their two sons. I know the NAA study notes highlight a really poignant detail here about Zipporah's absence during those famous Egyptian plagues.
Yeah, the text strongly implies she had been sent away back to her father previously. She and the boys were not there for the showdown with Pharaoh or the parting of the Red Sea.
Was that simply a protective measure? Because Moses knew he was walking into the most dangerous, high-stakes confrontation imaginable.
Right? Confronting the most powerful ruler on earth. That is the most logical historical reading. Sending his family away shielded them from the fallout.
Makes sense.
But think about the psychological weight of that reunion in the desert. Moses has just overthrown an empire. He has carried the burden of millions of lives, and suddenly he is standing face to face with his wife and children again after this agonizing separation.
And the names of those two children carry so much narrative weight. I love when ancient texts embed entire histories into a name.
They really do.
According to the notes, these names are profound markers of Moses' internal life. The first son is named Gershom, which translates to, I became an alien, or a pilgrim in a foreign land.
It functions as a living, breathing reminder of displacement.
Yeah.
Gershom represents the trauma of Moses' isolation when he was a fugitive in Midian, hiding from his Egyptian past, feeling entirely unrooted.
Then you have the second son, Eliezer, which means, the God of my father was my help and delivered me from Pharaoh's sword.
Which represents the testimony of deliverance. Think about how this connects to the broader theme for anyone who's been through a massive life transition.
Oh, that's good.
Every time Moses called his sons by name, he was publicly reciting his own spiritual autobiography. He looks at one son and sees his deepest season of pain and isolation. He looks at the other and sees his greatest triumph and rescue.
His children literally carry his history.
They carry his trauma and his testimony.
Okay, let's unpack this next part, because Moses and his family reunite, and the Holman notes draw special attention to the physical interaction between Moses and Jethro.
It's a very specific greeting.
It is. Moses goes out to meet his father-in-law, bows down, and kisses him. This is the undisputed, miraculous leader of a massive nation. a man who stared down Pharaoh. Yet he takes a posture of profound reverence and dignity before a Midianite priest.
And that posture becomes even more striking when you contrast it with the events of the immediately preceding chapter. The NAA notes draw a brilliant thematic contrast here.
Okay, what happened right before this?
Just prior to Jethro arriving, the Israelites were in the desert and were suddenly attacked by the Amalekites. It was a brutal, unprovoked war.
Total hostility from the outside world.
Right. The Amalekites met Israel's vulnerability with violence. Then Jethro arrives. He is also an outsider. He comes from the same harsh desert environment. But he arrives in complete peace.
Wow, what a shift.
In fact, based on the narrative up to this point, Jethro offers the most faithful, positive response of any outsider who has heard the story of the Exodus so far.
So Moses takes Jethro into his tent and just unloads the whole story, the hardships, the Egyptians, the miraculous deliverance. While analyzing this conversation, the Holman notes point out a fascinating literary motif operating in the background.
The hand motif.
Yes, the repeated mention of the hand of the Egyptians. For those of us who aren't scholars of ancient Near Eastern literature, what is the specific significance of that hand imagery?
The hand is a central metaphor in ancient storytelling for power, control, ownership, and oppression. Throughout the Exodus narrative, God isn't just delivering Israel from a geographic location. He is breaking the hand, the oppressive grip of the Egyptians.
That paints such a vivid picture.
It really does. And when Jethro listens to this epic account, his immediate response is to bless the Lord for rescuing the people from underneath that crushing hand.
Jethro then makes this sweeping declaration. He says, "Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods." We cannot gloss over the source of that quote.
No, we can't.
Jethro is a foreign priest. For him to hear this story and definitively declare that Israel's God is the supreme God, that feels like a monumental theological shift.
It validates the entire outward-facing purpose of the Exodus. The text suggests the rescue wasn't solely about freeing the Israelites. It was meant to demonstrate God's sovereignty to the surrounding nations.
And Jethro is the proof of concept.
Exactly. Jethro's reaction is the proof. And his declaration naturally flows into a moment of deep fellowship.
They hold a massive feast. But the Holman notes are very specific about the menu, so to speak. Jethro brings a burnt offering, but he also brings sacrifices. What is the distinction there, and why does it matter that Jethro, Aaron, and all the elders sit down to eat bread together?
It's a really important distinction. In the ancient sacrificial system, a burnt offering was entirely consumed by fire on the altar. It represented a total, uncompromising dedication to God.
So nobody eats that one.
Right, nobody eats that. The sacrifices, however, involved a shared meal. The animal was prepared, and the people actually sat down and ate it in God's presence. It was communion.
So they are breaking bread together in this incredibly sacred context.
And the NAA notes emphasize that this meal is a prototype. This desert feast prefigures the standard of life and worship that God is about to formally reveal a few chapters later at Mount Sinai.
It's a preview.
It is. It's a glimpse of the communal harmony God envisions for this new nation.
Okay, so we leave Moses and Jethro at this beautiful, sacred meal under the desert stars. It feels like the ultimate spiritual high. But here's where it gets really interesting.
The reality check.
The reality check. The glow of that family reunion fades the very next morning. The sun comes up. Jethro steps out of his tent, and he witnesses what can only be described as an absolute administrative nightmare.
It is the ultimate bottleneck, a textbook example of how not to manage a population.
Moses is sitting down from dawn until dusk, acting as the sole judge for every single dispute among hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of people.
It's mind-boggling.
The entire population is just standing around him in the desert heat, waiting in line for their turn to have Moses settle their arguments.
The linguistic insights from the Holman notes really expose how unsustainable this scene is. The Hebrew text deliberately emphasizes the physical contrast between sitting and standing.
Moses is sitting, the people are standing.
Right. And the underlying concept in the original language implies a question of endurance. The people are literally standing all day, and if Moses keeps functioning as a one-man Supreme Court, he will not be able to endure or stand the weight of the work. He will collapse under it.
We have all felt that, haven't we? I mean, think about your own life, listening right now. We've all had those days where we are literally the bottleneck of our own lives.
Oh, absolutely.
We fall into the trap of thinking, it's just faster if I do it myself, or I'm the only one who truly understands how to fix this. And before we know it, we are Moses, sitting in the desert, surrounded by demands we cannot possibly fulfill.
It is a universal human trap. often born out of a misplaced sense of duty. Moses likely thought he was serving God and serving the people by making himself available for every minor dispute.
But Jethro sees through the noble facade immediately.
He does.
Jethro pulls his son-in-law aside and asks a piercing question. Why do you sit alone? He doesn't flatter Moses. He doesn't puff up his ego and say, wow, look how important and indispensable you are.
Not at all.
He is brutally blunt. He says, what you are doing is not good. You will wear yourself out.
Jethro recognizes that Moses' current method of leadership is actually doing profound damage to the very people he is trying to protect.
Because delayed justice is denied justice.
Exactly. The people are exhausted. Moses is exhausted. So Jethro lays out a solution that is incredibly systematic.
Let's break down this Jethro principle because it feels like something you would learn in a modern executive MBA program, yet it was spoken in a tent thousands of years ago.
It involves 3 distinct steps. First, Moses must fundamentally redefine his role. He has to shift his focus from the micro to the macro.
Get out of the weeds.
Yes. Jethro tells him to represent the people before God and teaches them the broad statutes and laws, the big picture. Moses needs to be the visionary. He needs to equip the people with the knowledge to solve their own problems, rather than micromanaging every dispute over a wandering goat.
That is the crucial first hurdle for any leader or overwhelmed parent, stepping back to see the big picture. Then comes step 2, which is selecting leaders to help carry the load.
This part is key.
The Holman and NAA notes focus heavily on the qualifications Jethro outlines here. He doesn't advise Moses to find the wealthiest men or the men with the most impressive military backgrounds.
The criteria are entirely character-driven. They must be capable men, certainly, but the text specifies 3 non-negotiable traits.
Well, aren't they?
They must fear God, they must love the truth, and they must hate corruption or avarice.
They have to be fundamentally unbribable.
Because if you establish a decentralized justice system, which is what they are building, and you staff it with corrupt individuals, you will rot the society from the inside out. Character and integrity are prioritized far above mere technical skill.
Which brings us to step 3, the actual organizational chart. Jethro proposes a tiered system. He says to appoint these qualified men as chiefs of thousands, chiefs of hundreds, chiefs of 50s, and chiefs of 10s.
It's an infinitely scalable pyramid.
It really is.
And the operational rule is incredibly elegant. Push the decision-making down to the lowest possible level. These new leaders handle all the everyday, simple cases. Only the hardest, most complex cases ever make their way up the chain to Moses.
So, beyond just giving Moses a break, what are the broader ripple effects of implementing this system? Like, how does this alter the fabric of Israelite society?
The societal shift is monumental. The NAA notes state very clearly that this system guarantees the well-being of all the people.
Not just Moses.
Right, all of them. When Moses was operating as a silo, the people were frustrated, angry, and left waiting in the sun. By empowering others, the burden is shared. Conflicts are resolved swiftly at the local level.
It changes the whole dynamic.
The community transitions from a state of anxious waiting to a state of functional peace.
But there's also a deeply personal transformation happening for Moses here, isn't there? The Holman notes draw a line from this moment all the way back to Moses' earliest days in Egypt, long before the burning bush.
This is perhaps the most fascinating psychological insight in the entire chapter. If you return to Exodus chapter 2, verse 14, Moses, as a younger man, tried to intervene in a fight between 2 Hebrews.
I remember this.
And one of them mocked him with a devastating question. Who made you a prince and a judge over us?
That was the defining rejection. That was the moment that broke his confidence and sent him running into the desert as a fugitive in the first place.
That question likely haunted him for decades. But look at where he is now. He actually is the undisputed prince and judge over them. He holds absolute authority. But how does he choose to validate his leadership?
Not by holding on to it.
Right. He doesn't hoard the power to prove his worth. He heals his own insecurities about his capacity by actively giving that judging power away to others.
He distributes the authority to ensure the health of the community rather than hoarding it to soothe his own ego. That redefines what true leadership looks like.
It really does.
It is not about proving you are the only one capable. It is about cultivating capability in the people around you.
He secures his legacy by empowering his community.
Which brings all of these ancient, dusty insights right into your living room, your office, or your car today. As we wrap up this deep dive, I really want you to take a hard look at your own responsibilities.
It's a tough question to ask yourself.
It is. Are you currently trying to be Moses? Are you sitting alone from dawn to dusk, carrying the entire weight of your family, your business, or your community because you secretly believe you are the only one who can solve the problems?
Yeah.
Or are you willing to look around, find capable people who love the truth, empower them with real responsibility, and share the load?
And as you reflect on that, consider one final intriguing detail that sits quietly at the very end of this narrative.
Okay, what is it?
Jethro has just delivered arguably the most important organizational advice in history, advice that literally structures a new nation. Yet he doesn't stick around to take the credit.
He doesn't ask for a promotion.
He doesn't ask for a title at all. He doesn't demand to be named the chief of the thousands. Verse 27 simply states that Moses let him go, and he went back to his own land.
Wow.
It invites us to deeply wonder, what does Jethro's quiet exit teach us about the profound difference between having true, lasting influence and simply desiring to hold on to power and titles?
A completely selfless act of influence without the need for applause. That is a brilliant thought to leave you with. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the desert with Moses and Jethro. We are officially signing off for today. And as we say goodbye, God blesses all the listeners.